All right, so we got some important updates on the Code Veronica remake, as well as some, I think a kind of strong likelihood that we're going to get a Cold Fear remake, of all things. Cold Fear in the year 2025. Who would have thunk it? I guess me and the other 12 people who played Cold Fear, we have a lot to be excited about because I do think Cold Fear is pretty good. We'll talk about it when we get into it. But yeah, some good news today in the world of horror video games. So let's go ahead and dive in. I appreciate you for tuning in. I appreciate you for stopping by. And yeah, if you're new, consider subscribing. All right, so out the gate, Code Veronica, the big dog, we got to get into. So once again, from Dust Golem, very reliable Resident Evil leaker and insider, survival horror leaker and insider, I should say. Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake will feature a semi-open world design with Claire Redfield using a motorcycle to explore Rockfort Island. So a small-scaled open world in Code Veronica where Claire is going to be hopping on a damn motorcycle and cruising around. I should add to that, apparently Wesker is going to play a larger role in the story, and the Ashford twins are not going to be as predominant, like as I guess I should say prominent. They're not going to be featured as heavily, supposedly, which that would be a major bummer to me. I went through, I think 2 shows ago, just talking about how fucking dark Code Veronica is, and it's mostly all because of the Ashford twins. I shouldn't say all because of the Ashford twins, but like a major factor. And if anything, like I'd want those characters to be expanded upon more and to see more of them, kind of similar to, you think about like the Mendez and RE4, or even Luis and RE4. I would like to see something like that for the Ashford twins, and more lore and diving more into them and getting more backstory information on them. And I guess some of that you do get with like Mendez through documentation that you find in the world of RE4, but I don't know. I would really like to see like a genuine deep dive and more cutscenes and more character moments and just more like upfront storytelling regarding the Ashford twins. But the motorcycle stuff, that sounds sick as fuck. And I guess that would make sense if Leon is supposedly going to have a motorcycle in RE9, which Dust Golem has hinted at in the past as well. So my thing though with this is I just hope that there's like an actual survival horror element to the motorcycle itself. I don't want it to be, because we got like RE6, and that's dope with what's his name, Jake or Jack or whatever on the motorcycle, and it's big action shit, and then the Leon, and like that was all fine and dandy, but I think to something like Days Gone, where it's like, dude, that would be perfect for how to implement a motorcycle into Resident Evil, where you still have some element of survival horror there, where you're worried about fuel, where you're worried about, the bike taking damage, having to repair the bike, and you could even get fun with it, have customization elements in there where you can go in and spray paint your bike and throw decals on it and upgrade it, and like those type of things would be cool as well. But just some element of like, oh shit, I am alone in the middle of this location, forest, whatever. Maybe they expand the world a little bit to add a bit more forestry that you're exploring through, or however they roll it out. Because that's, I guess, the other thing too, right? Where I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about Code Veronica originally, and I'm looking like, how big was that world? Like, I can't think of maybe but one area that you might be able to actually justify having a motorcycle for. But then again, it's like, how hard would it be to add 2 or 3 small open zones to it? Once again, adding more like of a forestry location, or maybe a lead up into Code Veronica, like at the very beginning of the game before you get there, there's some kind of light open world element. I really don't know exactly. Like, I'm trying to think of this on the fly, and it's hard to put that together. But I do think, whenever you start talking about motorcycles and shit, my brain immediately goes to like more on rails stuff like Resident Evil 6, or like, and I shouldn't say that I'm immediately anti that. Like, I don't want it to be overly actiony and overly set PC, because I think you do get to a point where it's like the fandom kind of split on Resident Evil with 5 and 6 because of the Fast and Furious nature that the series was kind of adopting. And I don't think you want that, but I do think there's room for, you know, I don't know, a couple 5-minute little, because I think to something like Mafia the Old Country, where there were definitely set piece style events that took place inside of Mafia the Old Country that were very Uncharted reminiscent, very Naughty Dog reminiscent, big budget action style set pieces, even though it was a more slow, kind of methodical, properly paced fucking, you know, you're talking what, 100 years separating Uncharted from Mafia the Old Country, so it's obviously got to be a lot slower, but having those few moments sprinkled in there where the action does pick up, the pace does ramp up a little bit in the Old Country, like that, it felt justified and it worked, even within the context of it being a slightly more scaled back, slower paced story. So I think you can do it, and you think of something like a Tomb Raider Legends or a 007 Everything or Nothing, and obviously those are more big budget action blockbusters, but, well, I shouldn't say big budget, this will have a big ass budget as well, but it was more action oriented, those games, whereas with Code Veronica the remake, it definitely does need to be more subtle, more scaled back, slower paced, but at the same time, doesn't hurt to have like little tinges of, because they do have, you know, you think about even the opening scene where what's it, the helicopter's like shooting through the window or whatever, and Claire's running, and like there's big action set pieces, but they're mostly confined and restricted to cutscene, you know, kind of story related stuff that takes place throughout the game. It'd be sick to be able to control some of that stuff. So yeah, man, I'm hoping that this, because even, you know, you start thinking about the open world, and like they've done open world, not open world, they've done like small, very, very small scale zones, like with, you know, you have the damn boat, and you have the for Resident Evil 4, and you have some of these scenarios where I can kind of see what they're looking at of just expanding that into a slightly bigger thing. But I don't think we're going to get full-blown open worlds, or even, like, I'm expecting very, very small-scaled open worlds. So we'll see. Something like, not even something on the scale of Avowed or the Outer Worlds, like much, much smaller in terms of overall scope. So we'll see, man. I'm very, very excited for this Code Veronica remake, and I'll talk a lot more about it on the channel as we lead up to the launch of it. If, you know, if rumors are to be believed, I assume they are. Like their remake cadence and rollout right now it's at 11. You know, they're crushing it. I have no reason to doubt that their plans are locked in to remake the majority of the games left that need remaking, and Code Veronica is at the top of that list. So 2027, Code Veronica, I am all here for it. So let's talk about Cold Fear. This is fucking crazy, man. So Atari has acquired all the IP rights to 5 Ubisoft titles with a view to making them available on new platforms. The first being Cold Fear, Child of Eden, I Am Alive, Grow Home, and Grow Up are the 5 titles that Atari acquired from Ubisoft. And see, Atari will re-release these titles under their publishing label and explore opportunities to expand their reach through updated formats, new content, and extended distribution channels. So I imagine first up on the docket will be Cold Fear. I think that should probably be the priority. No offense to these other IP and these other titles, I don't really think there's much potential for any of these other games. What does potential really mean? Like, to find a very, very small market, sure, but I think that, you know, people love the Thing remaster that Night Dive did. Cold Fear would be close enough to that, and in my opinion, people kind of sleep on Cold Fear. It unfortunately came out at the worst fucking time, like literally months after Resident Evil 4, so it just got no love, but that game is dope. Like, if you have a chance to check it out, well, I guess I'd probably just wait because it'll come to modern platforms. And I guess that's the thing that I'm the most excited about here is this is just not available at all on modern platforms. So I imagine out the gate, Night Dive will probably go into this thing and it'll be more of a one-to-one remaster that they're known for, of not tinkering too much, not these full-blown remakes, like a one-to-one remaster. But the thing that I am the most curious about is if it does really well, because Night Dive has been consistently working on other people's IP. You know what I mean? Being contracted, being hired to develop these remasters for other people's IP. Whereas with this, Atari now owns Cold Fear. They own Night Dive. Like, does Atari say, okay, well, we're going to take a certain percentage of your staff, and if Cold Fear, the remaster, sells really well, are we going to put them onto a full-blown Cold Fear 2? And I think that's where shit really gets interesting, in my opinion, for like an actual sequel to Cold Fear. Because I think that, like, if you listen, I'm not gonna full blown go into a hour-long pitch for what I think could be cool about a Cold Fear 2, but when I think about it, I do look at something like Dredge, where you're on a boat and that's like a main priority of the game, but you're actually like controlling the boat and having to drive the boat and shit like that, and then that's like 50% of the game. The other 50% of the game is over-the-shoulder RE4 remake styled gameplay. Listen, I know you're talking about you're getting up there with budget, but I don't know. Cold Fear is much more aquatic based than Resident Evil. So I think having a ship that you're actually controlling, and having to maintain the ship, like you're dealing with monsters attacking your ship and you're having to repair it and patch the leaks and deal with the weather, like, say it'll be storming, so you'll be dealing with high tides and water will be coming onto your boat, and then all the mechanics from the first game where your boat kind of shifts back and forth, like having that stuff return, but now you're actually driving the boat and dealing with the waves manually and trying to navigate through all of that shit. I think that would be really, really sick, because I just watched Resident Evil Death Island, and a big theme there is contamination of like aquatic life. These different fish and sharks and shit that are being mutated, and I don't know, just the isolation of being out at sea is so damn scary. And the slim chance that you run into a fucking mutated shark, because like, dude, that's how you do stalker enemies. That's the spin. We've been consistently trying to figure out, like, okay, Mr. X was dope, Nemesis was less dope, Lady D was even less dope. How do we like create a new stalker style of enemy that is actually scary and not on this scripted path? Imagine a Jaws like scenario where you have this mutated shark that's just attacking the ship, but like not a non-stop occurrence, like once every couple hours of playtime, just to remind you, yep, that motherfucker, he's out there, he's stalking. You might not see him, you might not hear him, you might not, like, he might not be attacking right now, but you need to always be weary that he's right around the corner, because that's, once again, that's the thing about Jaws. The scariest part of the encounter and interaction with Jaws is not knowing when you're going to encounter and when you're going to interact with Jaws. Like, when is that moment going to happen? And so, I don't know. I just think that something like that would be really, really fucking dope for a Cold Fear 2. And I talking about budget and talking about like how to make this game and not have it cost hundreds of millions of dollars, like I think it would be kind of fucking cool to have it play just like Dredge, from that kind of top down, and even have that similar, maybe not that exact style of art, but I'm not talking Skull and Bones, I'm not talking even Sea of Thieves, I'm not talking that level of depth, but just imagine like driving that ship and you're never I mean, listen, if you want to fully go crazy with the budget and try to make a Cold Fear into like a thing, if you want to make Cold Fear into this like competitor in the space that's actually selling like tens of millions of copies, then hell yeah, I'd be so down to see like a realistic depiction of this where you're actually controlling a boat in third person, and you know it's got all of the mechanics that you would expect from like a, I mean, I'm not saying a Black Flag where you're a pirate and having to fire fucking cannons and shit like that, but having the ship that kind of feels and navigates and controls similarly to something like that from that perspective, like fuck yes, I would be so down. But I understand you're getting really expensive with that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that the Cold Fear was a really, it was such an unfortunate release. You know, the timing of it was just so unfortunate. So to think about a scenario where it comes out now with the survival horror renaissance, like I'm almost certain that no matter what, even if they just remaster the first game and never do anything else with the franchise, like, or the IP, never try to turn it into a franchise, I'm certain that a Cold Fear remaster will sell double whatever the original sold easily, you know. So Square Enix, Parasite Eve, where you at? That's kind of the last one, right? Well, no, I mean Dino Crisis, Capcom, but we know that's going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind that we're getting a Dino Crisis remake at some point. So it's really just up to Square with Parasite Eve. But it's kind of not really up to them because they don't have the rights. They don't own the IP Parasite Eve. Someone else, I think it's a book, like it's a novel, a series of novels or something and I guess they licensed that, which. But it's like, I just don't think that really fucking matters. Not to be dismissive to the book series or whatever, but like, just call it fucking, Dawn of the Parasite or I guess maybe not that, but Parasite, something with the fucking name Parasite in it or something with the name Eve in it, and people will get the message. You don't have to have the exact title. So, yeah, Square. Get on it. Let's get back into the survival horror space. So yeah, I'm excited. Definitely excited for the potential of Cold Fear. It's so silly to even say this, but for the potential of a Cold Fear 2, a game that released literally 20 years ago. Like not, that is not a over fucking. That I'm not being hyperbolic. That game released 20 years ago, and we're potentially in a reality where a Cold Fear 2 can come out in 2029 or some shit. Probably like 2030. Probably like 2035. But anywho, speaking of more, there's never enough. Director Guillaume Broche says that Expedition 33 is not the end of the Clair Obscur series. Clair Obscur is the franchise name. Expedition 33 is one of the stories that we want to tell in this franchise. Exactly what it will look like and what the concept will be is still too soon to announce, but what is sure is that this is not the end of the Clair Obscur franchise. So we're getting more expeditions, more Clair obscuring through the worlds. This is coming from Mr. Matty Plays, who conducted the interview with the director over there at Sandfall. And listen, I mean, this should come as no surprise when a small team goes on to sell probably like close to 5 million copies, I would imagine, by now, and like become one of the best-selling JRPG or JRPG-inspired games of the last fucking decade or so. It's like, yeah, I imagine they have no intention on abandoning this IP. They made a lot of money, and a part of me is a little bit bummed by this. Like, I feel the Expedition, that Expedition 33 ended in such a way that you don't really need to explore anything more in that world, in my opinion. And it's like, I start thinking about what you could explore, what story you could tell, and it's like, okay, do you just go back and tell the story of a previous expedition and dive like deeper into that? But I don't know, man. Like, I feel like that would be such a disappointment. in comparison to what we got with 33 and everything that we know now. For anybody and I guess spoilers for Expedition 33, I don't really, because if I'm going to sit here and try to think about a world where we get a new game in this series, like, I don't know how to talk about that without probably diving into spoilers. Like, I have no idea. Once again, I don't script my thoughts, fucking obviously. So we'll see where the conversation leads. But like, as I'm sitting here trying to think about how in the fuck we could get a Clair Obscur expedition, or I guess it won't be an expedition game. And I guess that's the fucking hint right there, right? Where he says we're getting more Clair Obscur games, but not necessarily expedition. What was the exact quote here? Clair Obscur is the franchise name. Expedition 33 is one of the stories that we want to tell in this franchise. So, okay, so Clair Obscur. Okay. So probably not going to get another expedition story, which that actually makes me feel a lot better. To think of this more as like Final Fantasy. Clair Obscur is just Final Fantasy. You know what I mean? That's the Final Fantasy doesn't have to connect to any of the other games, none of the characters, none of the lore, none of that it doesn't have to carry over from one game to the next. And it can be totally new characters, a totally new story. So that is actually much, much, much more compelling to me for Clair Obscur, whatever the hell the next game is going to be. And so like, I guess like you could go through, because the first one's all about art in terms of the paintress and these paintings that are being brought to life. And so I think about the next one, like maybe you could do, I don't know, would you do a writer? Because like, I think it could be dope where, we'd know from the get-go that the world, or since everybody who's playing this who finished the first game would know that with the world being painted and created from someone's mind, they would have to figure out some new twist but still play within that realm, I'm guessing. And try to figure out, like, you would have to create a compelling reason for someone to want to play this game despite knowing it's not quote unquote real. And maybe it would be like maybe you're the writer. Maybe the next game takes place and it's like curated through a writer's perspective and you're controlling all of the script. Like you're scripting the story for the game as it's going on. And yeah, I don't know, like maybe the twist there could be kind of the opposite of Expedition 33, where the people you're controlling in your writings, in your stories, start making decisions on their own, decisions that you're not selecting for them, decisions that you're not scripting for them. So as you're like trying to write their stories, they begin contradicting your writings. And it could be like a scenario where it starts off super simple, where they start saying little lines different to the lines that you wrote, or maybe even just different inflection or different ways of saying the lines that you wrote that you're like, that doesn't sound right. And then that kind of evolves into the characters choosing to do the opposite thing that you chose for them to do. And then, of course, that would lead to like a full-blown revolution, a rebellion of sorts, where they're actively trying to sabotage your art because they realize your art is everything to you. It is your life. So it could be kind of like their way of killing you is killing your art. And the ending, obviously you end up realizing that your characters that you've created, that you've loved, that maybe you're the good guy, right, in the story, and there's no big twist there. It's like throughout the entire thing, you are the good guy. You're just trying to find escapism through your art, as was the situation with Expedition 33. Not that you're per se you're not controlling the character through the but it in a similar vein of trying to find the escape in your art, and you as the main character you're pinning the story, you're trying to find that escapism through your art. But the same kind of message could be told there, where it's your characters that you're creating are, what's the right word that I'm looking for here? Like they're the embodiment of the rational, practical emotion, or the just the logic of the situation, where if you are escaping through your art and those characters are your everything, and then the characters that you are writing to be your everything and to take all of your pain away start inflicting more pain upon you. And it's kind of this idea of like, you have to live real life, just as the same kind of one of the main takeaways that a lot of people had for Expedition 33 is like, you have to get out of these paintings, it's killing you, and you have to get out of these writings, it's killing you. But opposed with this scenario, it's like, no, the actual characters that you are writing are rebelling against you and trying to kill you to save you, because you got to get out of this. You got to escape this 100% tunnel focus into your artwork, into your writings, into your stories. So I don't know, just once again, I don't know why that type of shit is so much more compelling to me. Like, I like just sitting here and thinking about like all these different what ifs of how this could attach to that, and then the story could branch this way, and like you start thinking about all that's the most fun shit when you hear about a sequel coming out, or you hear about some new game that was just announced, and you're like, oh, what about this, what about that? And it's not like I don't let this cloud my judgment or cloud my expectations. Like, I'm not expecting exactly this from the next story. I wouldn't want exactly this from the next story. They're obviously much fucking better writers, and they're going to come up with something much cooler than anything I just threw out of my ass right there. But I do think something like that, like, are you going to stay in the field of, like, are you going to stay in that field of artistry? Are you going to stay in that field of, like, are you going to do one about music that's like a hi-fi rush rhythm game? Are you going to do one that's about writing where it's kind of this Pentiment styled story? Are you going to do, I think they'll stay in the JRPG inspired space. Their combat, they've mastered that. Like, there's no real reason to get away from that. But I don't know. It's just, I do think that I think this series has legs for sure, if that's going to be the way that it's rolled out and conducted, where you're getting Clair Obscur games opposed to games about the expedition from the Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Like, we don't need to learn anything more about those expeditions, in my opinion. Like, it's perfect with the way it's rolled out, where you get the documents, you get the information kind of drip fed through you that way. Like, that's all personally, for me, that's all I really need to know about those stories. Like, I'm so on board for them to just go tell something completely new. And yeah, it's so wild to me, man. Just thinking, like, we were talking about Cold Fear, Ubisoft selling off Cold Fear. And it's like, dude, this dude, what was his name? Let me pull up the Guillaume Broche. Once again, fucking major apologies there for butchering that. But this dude was an ex-Ubisoft employee who quit Ubisoft because he was bored and went on to make this. And it's like, you got 9,000 people working at your company, and you see like Eternal Strands comes out and is reviewed really, really well. Some ex-Ubisoft talent leading that up. And you have Dispatch, this is coming out later in the year, ex-Ubisoft talent leading that up. And there's a lot of these Ubisoft employees who are going off and they're branching out and creating their own new IP with new studios. Give me 1 second. So they're branching out and they're creating these new IPs with their newfound studios, and having great success doing it. Critical acclaim, commercial success in the case of Expedition 33. And it's like, out of those 9,000 employees that you have under your umbrella, how many of them could have created an Expedition 33 for you? How many would it have taken? Like, how many employees could you have put into a fucking room that could have made a Cold Fear reboot that could have been somewhat competitive in the survival horror landscape? Could you probably put 30 people on that and made like a AA attempt at a revival of Cold Fear? And instead you're going to sell it off to Night Dive and like, watch. Or you sold it off to Atari, and then when Night Dive gets their hands on it, watch what's gonna happen. You know, these dudes go off and make fucking uh, uh a game that sold 5 million copies, or I think 3.3 million copies in 33 days. And sure, that's not exactly the numbers that Ubisoft is looking for, and maybe there is, just in terms of the unfortunate corporate landscape. Like, is there more value in putting 1,000 fucking people on an Assassin's Creed, and then another 1,000 people on a Far Cry game, and another 1,000 people on a Division game, and another 1,000 people on a, you know what I mean? Like, I guess so. To keep that pipeline and that production and that kind of pace, I guess it is more valuable for them to roll it out that way. But just from a purely personal standpoint, it's like, shit, man. You gotta take these experimental bets. I feel like you have to take experimental bets, because you don't know when the next thing is going to be the big thing. Like, you don't know. What if Cold Fear, somehow you got some employee that was really passionate about a Cold Fear reboot. They had a great idea for it. You greenlit the idea, and then Netflix sees it. Some executive over at Netflix or some big showrunner sees it, and they're like, I want to adapt this into a television show, into a movie. And then, oh damn, Cold Fear 5 years later is $1 billion franchise because it became a hit at the box office. It became a hit, the #1 show on Netflix. You know, you got fucking some what's the dude's name? Big fucking muscular, good-looking dude that plays Jack Reacher. I forget his name, but you get that motherfucker to star in it. And it becomes like the chicks are swooning over it. The ladies want to be with him. The men want to be him. It's like one of those big kind of return to the 80s action hero. And like, there's all of these unpredictable elements. And that's the thing with entertainment. There's nothing fucking bankable. You know what I mean? Like, you look at Call of Duty, you look at Grand Theft Auto, you look at these anomalies, right? But look at all of the surrounding parts of, oh wow, I didn't expect that game. Black Myth Wukong comes out and is the best-selling game of 2024. One of the best-selling games of 2024. Oh, you know, Baldur's Gate 3, a series that was incredibly niche for years and years and years, breaks out. 20 million copies sold. And that's like, you know, it's just, it goes to show you that things are ever evolving in the entertainment landscape. And it's to just do the same few things over and over and over and over again. It's like, it's the definition of insanity, right? To quote fucking Voss, to bring it all the way back around. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's just, I feel like under that umbrella, under that roof, under that, or I guess multiple different roofs, in the case of Ubisoft, probably what fucking gotta be 30 studios that they own or some shit like that. Just in terms of, I guess, 30 different sort of physical locations that people are working at, offices, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so I there's no doubt that there are some talented motherfuckers working at that company that have some great ideas that just aren't being greenlit, and it's so unfortunate because you literally see it with Expedition 33. Dude leaves Ubisoft, becomes the creative director of Sandfall, makes a smash hit. And I think the same thing's going to happen with Dispatch, Eternal Strands to a lesser extent. And then there's that other game, damn, I'm not thinking of it off the top of my head, but it's like a AAA open world action adventure game that's, or no, that actually might have been ex-Rockstar talent that announced that. Like something Sentinel? The Last Sentinel? I could be getting shit confused in my head. But anywho, yeah, man, that's pretty much it for the stories. I'll refresh the old Twitter feed real quick to see if anything broke as of the recording. I don't think so. And I do apologize. I've been quite a bit busy with work, so I haven't been on top of like all the stories. I'm sure there's a lot of smaller stuff that I wasn't able to corral and put into the show, but yeah, I give me a little bit of time to go through some of the smaller stories, and I'll probably put together a bigger show for y'all in the coming days. So I appreciate y'all so very much for tuning in, so very much for stopping by, and I shall see you good people in the next episode. And also, if you really enjoy the content, man, consider supporting on Patreon or through the YouTube membership program. I have a there's a bunch of exclusive drops available. Fast food ranking. I sit down and talk about my 30 years of my real experience, my real expertise in this world of fast food consumption. And so that's like a fucking hour long ranking where I sit there and just talk about fast food with my fucking drool hanging out my mouth. And then I have the top 10 albums, my top 10 favorite albums of all time, and I actually play clips from the albums in the like stuff that I absolutely cannot do on YouTube, or I'll, just get completely fucking like all of that. All of it is copyright claimed on Patreon and through the YouTube memberships. Like, it's all copyright claimed, but I'm not monetizing it. Like, I don't have to monetize it, so I don't have to worry about that at all. So that is available on Patreon, on the YouTube membership program. And I just recorded my top 10 favorite television shows of all time, and I'm in the process of editing that. I should have that up very soon as well. Once again, clips all in there, stuff that I could never do on YouTube for public consumption, because it would get completely fucking demonetized. So yeah, man, appreciate y'all so very much. Check that stuff out if it is appealing to you. And yeah, once again, greatly appreciate the support. I know it's a cliche, or it's a whatever, but I honestly, I don't think enough creators thank their audience enough. Of like, shit's been going pretty damn good, and I'm the type of person who can very much reflect and just zone in, focus in 100% on the negatives and not see the positives at all. So I'm gonna take this time to see the positives. Thank y'all so much for the support. And yeah, it's been awesome. So thank y'all very, very much, and I will see you good people in the next episode. Goodbye.